All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Honey Tea Podcast, where we talk all things the tea with a bit of sweetness. I'm your host, Melissa, and it has been a long day. I am home alone, which, as some of you know, is a challenge. Uh, I have recorded when other family members are home, but there's more freedom to be candid, and it just feels more natural when no one's home. I was going to record, um, I guess it's been an hour now, but my ex husband stopped by to fill some buckets of water. He's like a carpenter. He's always doing carpenter stuff. I don't know. So he's building a house up the road, and I don't think they have running water there yet. So he was filling up a bunch of buckets, and we ended up talking about the kids for a little bit and then other stuff. So very grateful to have a relationship with the father of two of my children that I do today, because it is really difficult when you are raising children and it's not that way. It sucks for everyone involved. So time does heal. Our daughter recently graduated, so that was cool too, that we were both there together to experience that with her. Um, and I'll share a little bit about what we were actually talking about. So he was showing me a picture of a place in Colorado where he used to live in Colorado. So he was showing me like this, um, someone wants a carpenter to come out there and work, and your rent would be $500, and then you like fix stuff at the big house or whatever. So I was like, oh, I got to show you something too. And my nephew I was sending pictures of our family from years ago when my nephew's father was younger. He said he hadn't really seen any pictures. So one of the pictures came up. I wanted to show my ex-husband, like, oh, check this picture out. And I looked, and I didn't even realize when I sent it to my nephew earlier tonight that I'm in the picture. I'm a little babe. And we started talking about my early life, and he was asking questions, and I don't have all the answers of how I got up here from North Carolina, which is where I was born. I have like three different stories from three different people in my family. The one person, um, may not have been in their right mind at the time. And there's also been a lot of external influences that could also affect the current status of the brain now. So memories may be distorted. Then we have another person who I feel like, whether it's for survival or it's just what they do and they may not realize it, they will always shed themselves in the best light and the other person in the worst light. And then we have the third person who is the most honest and has the most integrity, but the shittiest memory. So I've kind of pieced together the first 3 months of my life, and my trek from North Carolina to Maryland. But we were talking about our biological parents and what that looks like for us. He was also adopted. I was adopted by biological grandparents, but never have met my biological father. And we were talking about, at this age, having children, and especially grown children, like for health reasons, wanting to maybe make a little more of an effort than we have before to contact those relatives that we've never met. So anyhow, I was going to record, and then I heard his truck pull up, and I didn't want to be in the middle of recording and then him walk in. I mean, it would have been fine, but um, so I think it's interesting. I was not expecting that conversation, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Um, let's see. This weekend was amazing. Beautiful weather. Work has been absolutely horrendous. Work has been, let's see, got to do that thing. Got to do that thing. I did reach out to support on the platform that I use for the podcast, and no one has gotten back to me yet about why it keeps. I mean, it could just be me being impatient. There's just like a 5 second lag when it goes from one chapter to the next. So I may just need to develop more patience. Um, yeah, work has been not lucrative, and I have to make a change. Um, I submitted an application on Friday to a pretty big company in the restaurant industry. It is not corporate. I could never in my life work freaking corporate. If I had to, I would, but I don't have to, so I'm not. Um, and it's, again, when you put the right energy out there, the right energy will find you. So I was pleasantly surprised yesterday when I got a direct phone call from them, and I was very forthright and transparent with my situation. You know, I live in Carroll County, it's in Baltimore City, but I have bills to pay, and I don't want to keep dipping into money that's been set aside. So wish me luck. I have an interview on Wednesday. I mean, other than the money, works great. I love the people that I work with. The customers are great. It's 2 minutes from home. It's a beautiful place. The food is delicious. The energy is great, but it's a tough time of year, according to veteran staff. This is just a tough time of year to work at this particular spot. So, life is just problem solving. It is about problem solving. I was at the pool with my two boys earlier tonight, just for an hour. And my oldest son came, it was so my oldest son and my youngest son were there. And it's just the community pool. We moved here about 9 years ago. So the older kids were about, well, do the math. Um, they were not old enough to lifeguard yet, but they hung out. And my oldest son said, he was like, wow, it's like a cycle. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he used to be a lifeguard at the pool, and my daughter used to work at the snack shack once they were old enough. And he's like when we first moved here, all of the kids like my age became lifeguards. And then when we were lifeguards, all of the younger kids that used to come to the pool, like they're lifeguards now. And it's like a cycle. And I'm just laying there. I just quiet. And after a few minutes, I said, wait until you're my age and you see how many cycles there are and how many have repeated. Um, and I told him that's all life is. It's just cycles and problem solving. So I'm not saying we go out and look for the problems, but that's all it is. Every single day. I learned that from an old employer, Jerry Cohey. He was a very prominent figure, probably still is, but I think he's retired now, so not as active in the Baltimore County, Catonsville community, but he was the director at a preschool where I worked at Catonsville Community College. And what a guy. Just phenomenal. Amazing energy, very giving, very generous, very patient, very accepting of everyone. There was no separation between him and the next man or woman or child. He went on to marry um, a woman I was very close with. She was the mother of some friends in high school. And I always looked up to her. So that was cool. And I've gone to their house to meditate and everything. So another cycle. But Jerry Cohey said, and that really stuck with me, that as educators and teachers, that's what we are. We're problem solvers. And I feel like that's also applicable to life. Um, This dog, he goes outside and then he can't get back up the steps by himself, so I have to help him. And if I sit here and try to ignore it, it doesn't go away. Um, and this is processing. So those watching my YouTube, I'm so sorry. I have to get up for 2 seconds. I have to get up for 2 seconds and then I'll be right back. Sorry. Come on. Come on. Oh, come on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Poor dog. He's 16. He doesn't know if he's coming or going. He's a pit bull and his back legs are just not as strong as they once were. So getting up the steps, he's a little nervous. Um, and actually all he needs is like the moral support. I just stand behind him and knowing that I'm there is enough for him to find the courage to walk up the steps. But it's just ridiculous sometimes when you're in the house and you're trying to do stuff and you're like, there he is again, barking. Um, so yeah, it's funny. I've been trying to get into this restaurant where I'm working, the one that's not making any money, or I'm not making any money there. I'm sure they're doing fine. For years, I've been trying to get in there and was recently hired because a friend of a friend put in a good word. And sometimes it's not always how you think it's going to go. Like you have this big idea in your head, and then once you're finally there, it's completely different. And that's okay. That is okay because I will keep moving and rocking and rolling. Looking forward to see what opportunities come from this new venture. So we'll see. Want to talk a little bit about clear communication and how this applies to your dreams, what it is you're trying to cultivate, where you see yourself, whether it's with work or relationships or a relationship with yourself or money, whatever it is. Being clear about what it is that you want. And I have found my experience, this has been challenging at times. So I'm a yoga instructor. And for a very long time, I felt like I wanted to do something more, but I didn't know what it was. So, in this day and age with technology, there's a lot of exposure that we get at just at the touch of a button. It's at our fingertips all day long. Post COVID, um, everyone's teaching online. So, I never thought I would teach online until COVID hit, and that was the only way I was teaching. Um, but really getting clear on what it was that I wanted to do to add on, that was challenging for me. And someone told me today, they had commented on a live that I did, and they said something like, I liked your live or whatever. And I was like, yep, just doing my thing, but I haven't figured out what my thing is yet. And they said, your thing is whatever you put your energy into. And that really stuck with me because it's so true. I don't need to be defined. I don't need to be boxed in. But when we're trying to cultivate something, having some really clear parameters, um, and you get to decide what that is. It's not for anyone else to decide. So it was challenging. And I think really it was getting honest with myself. It's easy to see, let's use the yoga example. It's easy to see people online with a bright and shiny app or website or, on demand videos, whatever it is. But are any of those really what I want to do? They can be inspiration, and then I can kind of put my spin on it, make it my own, but really honing in on what it is you want. And we need to be clear when we do this. If you can think about it like you are like, the universe is your employee. Okay. So you are, and like, don't take it out of context. Okay. But like, you are the employer, and the universe wants to work for you. It wants to give you everything that you desire. But if we look at it with this metaphor of employer employee, and we've all worked for an employer that sucks, right? So if we're unclear in our communication, the employee is not going to know what to do. If we are Monday, we're saying one thing, and Tuesday, we're saying another thing, then that is wasting. You know what it is. You know what it is. You already know. Problem solving. If we're saying a different thing from Monday to Tuesday, that is not working efficiently, and it's confusing. So the energy is not really gaining momentum because it's back and forth. All right. Um, the second thing is, when we are clear, when we are living with an intention, when we see the vision, and almost to the point of being delirious, like, whatever vision it is that you have to believe it above everyone else. Like, you have to believe it to the point of being freaking delusional, and don't give up until it happens. It works. I'm still working on it. Like, I'm not there, but I can look back 15, 20 years ago and be like, wow, I never thought I would be here. So just keep going. Please don't give up until it's going to it's going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Just don't give up. Give yourself a chance. So being really direct and using language that supports that. So I like to write it down, and other people that I work with have had similar experiences where, when you write it down, something changes. So, you know, talking with other people has value when you're trying to brainstorm or vent, or just sharing intimately with another person about your hopes and dreams, your sadness, your fears, your wins, your losses. There's value in that because we need each other. We've learned that in this podcast, we meaning me. um, Something different happens when you write it down. There is a different energy that is occurring when you consciously sit down, and you don't have to have like a pretty expensive journal. This can be on the back of a receipt. I have way too many notebooks because I just, whenever something comes, I just write it down. It doesn't need, I used to hold myself hostage to perfection. And let me tell you, it is not a fun place to be, because I would not write, like, just free journaling. Not even, I wasn't even like doing anything at this point. I mean, I was doing stuff, but I didn't have like a business or anything. Um, I would not write because I didn't feel like it was prolific or profound. Like, who the fuck cares? No one cares what I'm doing. This many people, zero. If you're watching the YouTube, if you're not, I'm holding up a big fat zero, because no one cares what I'm doing. So the fact that I was not writing is actually doing myself and those I might reach a disservice. So I have like 52 million notebooks. I actually had to clear them off my desk so I could record this. Um, Write it down. It doesn't need to be on any specific, it doesn't need to be in the same notebook all the time. You might have little tidbits all over the place, and that's okay. Um, in the yoga community, the intention, sometimes we hear at the beginning of a practice that you might set an intention. There's a lot of yoga classes where the instructor will offer an intention, and this is called sankalpa. Sankalpa is when you cultivate the intention for what it is you are, the energy that you're bringing to the space. So this could be on the yoga mat, or it could be how you start your day, how you show up to work, how you show up when you get home from work, when you walk through the door at home, how you show up to yourself, for yourself. Um, this is something that I also struggled with for a long time. I put myself on the back burner because no one was getting hurt if I didn't do it for myself, except me. So I have used this in yoga class before where, and I wait until they're kind of in it. So I don't do it at the beginning of class. It'll usually be at the end of class, and um, the energy is kind of slowing down, and the breath is evening out, and we're looking more introspectively. And I will offer for the student to recall three people, like cultivate in your mind three people. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Three people that you love. Hold on. So you think in your mind of three people that you love. And that's usually, I hope it's pretty easy. Um, I hope that there are three people that come easily to your mind as you're listening to this now that you love. And then I say, now put yourself at the top of the list. And that's where we need to get back to that, because when we're living with intention, when we're loving ourselves first, then we're already raising the vibration. So that can permeate out in a more honest and organic way, being that your truest self is what's coming through. Your authentic self is what's coming through, not some stressed out, overworked, um, feeling underappreciated, that you're so frazzled that you're just trying to check the boxes. So I feel like I kind of went off on a tangent there, but living with sankalpa is really important, and it doesn't need to be very big. It doesn't need to be very complicated. Um, I'll give you my example. The sankalpa I set for myself today was, do you know those days that you have where it's kind of unplanned and there's not a whole lot scheduled, and you just kind of go with the flow, and at the end of the day you're like, wow, I had an amazing day. My best friend of 27 years, her and I have both been in toxic relationships, um, often simultaneously. So we would be like each other's lifeline. You know, we'd get like one day once a month, and we'd be like, fuck, let's get out of here. And we'd go hang out. And at the end of those days, we always felt rejuvenated and filled up. So that was my sankalpa as I started my day today. Like, you know, universe, I'm open to having this day. If I am supposed to have it, I know that I will. And I did. And things like my ex-husband coming over unexpectedly and us just chatting out front about, you know, my early life, his early life, you know, we've both been through some stuff. And that's not to point the finger at family members or anything, because they're doing the best they can. But it was unplanned. And, you know, it kind of jogged some things inside of me, which is just information to look at and examine. So when we're setting an intention and being clear, now we have a twofold. Um, what am I trying to say? Not twofold, but like double threat. I know it's called triple threat, but we have two things working in our favor, to move toward the goal. And the last thing that I want to offer is alignment. So this is a tricky one. If you want to be a bedazzled cat collar CEO, right? But you are never around cats. It's possible. You can still do it. But are you living in alignment with what you're asking your employee, the universe, to do? So sit back and digest that for a second. You can have whatever it is that you want. And hard work is not to be discounted. Long hours are not to be discounted. Like, just because you sit down and write some stuff down, that's part of the work, but it's not all of it. There is much, much more that goes into it, and we don't get to decide when it happens. You just have to do the work. But are you really in alignment with what you're asking of the universe? And this goes back to making the space. Like, we're asking for the things that we want. We're saying that we want these things to our friends when we have conversations, or our family members, or our spouse. We're posting about it on social media. But at the end of the day, if that really happened tomorrow, are you ready? Are you actually ready? Are you living in alignment right now as if it's already happened? Ask yourself that question. These are some of the tougher questions that, when we slow down enough to really look at the internal landscape, are you being honest with yourself? So, listening to that guttural feeling, and we're moving into summer solstice. So, working with Manipura chakra, which is your belly. It's kind of like the your intuition, like that gut instinct. I don't want to get too into it because it's not a yoga podcast. Hold on, doing my thing. Let me do my thing. Let me do my thing. Okay, there we go. So, honoring that guttural instinct. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. That gut instinct is there for a reason. So, never forcing anything. If it is meant for you, it will come to you. You do not have to force it. It is not your job. When resistance comes up, that is information in your mind, body, or spirit that it is not supposed to happen right now. Maybe it'll happen tomorrow. Maybe it'll happen next year. But to force something, it might work right then, but ultimately, it's not going to be sustainable. So, clear communication, really important. And this can also apply to everyday life. You know, if you struggle with communication, you can work on, there's a lot of books. A lot of books. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm like, I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. That's it. Um, so, clear communication, lots of free YouTube videos. Um, in the yoga world, this is represented by the throat chakra, Vishuddhi chakra. The color that is associated here is blue. Creativity lives here. Speaking your truth, not only outwardly, but also inwardly. So, are you being honest with yourself? Are you being honest with what it is you truly want? Do you have a voice? Sometimes there was a point in time where I did not have a voice. I prayed. I hit my knees every day and asked the universe, please give me a voice, because I cannot anymore in this situation. I was so unhappy and I did not have a voice to say it. So sometimes we need to pray for a voice. Let me tell you, I developed a voice. Um, Clear communication, setting an intention. This can be a daily practice. This can be something that you apply to a more broad business venture, if you will. So sometimes, like a mission, similar to an intention or sankalpa. And then alignment. Are you behaving as if? Are you living in alignment with what it is you're saying? Because we've talked about okay, speak it out loud, speak your truth. But are you actually living in alignment that if it happened, you're ready to receive it? Um, I'm not saying that you can't change. You know, if it did happen tomorrow and you need to make little tweaks, that's okay. But are you really aligned with what it is that you're asking the universe to do for you? You know, it's think of that horrible employer that is always asking you to do some shit, and then you do it, but they're not really pulling their part. They're not pulling their weight or doing their part. So be a good employer so your employees are happy. Um, and I want to say a very special thank you to everyone that is listening now, that has listened, that will listen. I am very hopeful that some small nugget of this either makes you laugh because you think I'm ridiculous and, like, listen, I'm just doing this for, it started as a mental health venture that I was not doing so well with mental health. And I was like, well, what are 5 things you can do right now? And this was one of them, um, starting a podcast. So if it makes you laugh because you think I'm doing a terrible job, great. If it makes you laugh because you think I'm doing a great job, great. Um, Ultimately, I do hope that there is one small nugget that helps you in some way. And I am always rooting for you. I'm rooting for you to develop and realize your wildest potential because it's just on the other side and giving yourself a chance to succeed. There's a picture I have of myself in my bedroom on a vision board. And I think I was a freshman in high school. And in meditation today, my eyes opened and I caught a glimpse of that. And it was like looking at myself, but now I have a daughter who's 18 and I would do anything for her. So why wouldn't I do anything for myself? Because ultimately it's that cycle, you know. I was that teenage girl once. So giving yourself a chance to succeed and realize your wildest potential. Thank you for listening. I hope everyone has a fucking amazing week. Like, go get them, Tiger. All right, I'm out.